Boom.
Boom. Ooh. Love it.
Let's do it. Let's drill it.
I am super excited. How about you,
This is
Jason?
going to be good. Yes. Who do we have today,
Mr.
Greg?
Brian Ahearn here in studio. I said it right. I don't think you could say that any differently.
Yeah, you got it pretty right. Ahearn.
What-
Yep.
Ahearn.
Ahearn. Did I say it not Ahearn?
Nope. You got it. You got it right. Some people say
Yes.
Ahearn, but it's Ahearn.
Yeah, it's got to be A.
Ahearn.
A for
Got it.
Perfect. Awesome. Well, welcome to the Insurance
A
Dudes.
for awesome. Why didn't you go into that one?
A for
You said
awesome.
A for perfect. So awesome.
Yep, that's right. It's I'm just making sure you're paying attention, Mr. Jason.
Oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Trying.
If you're watching on YouTube instead of just listening to audio, you can tell that Jason is not paying attention.
Right. Speed breakers.
Speed
Let's
breakers.
just dive in.
Let's dive into speed breakers. Brian says that he's ready. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, because there's some new questions. Brian, have you ever had a mullet?
No, but I had a tail in college.
Oh,
Yes, the rat tail.
yeah, that's
I
the
did
old
too.
school
That's
mullet.
a good one.
That was a long
that's the
time
best.
ago.
Oh, nice. So that dovetails perfectly into the next question, which is Jack or Jim?
I'm sorry. Say that again.
Jack or Jim?
Johnny
Jim.
or Jose.
Jim is in GYM.
No, Jack as in Jack Daniels or Jim Beam?
Oh, okay. I'm just going to go Scotch.
Scotch. He goes to
Ooh,
Scotch.
Johnny.
Straight to
Most
Scotch.
most embarrassing thing your mom ever caught you doing?
Probably 4 years old, crap my pants, running up the stairs, trying to get to the bathroom.
Oh, good
That
one.
is awesome.
We haven't had that one. I
better.
like it. Have you ever jumped out of an airplane?
No, not yet.
Okay. Best dinosaur?
T-Rex.
It's the crowd pleaser. How many kids?
It's, little arms.
Yeah.
Your
many-
Next question.
How many kids
How many kids? I'm going to say one.
have you made cry? Sorry, please wait
Yeah.
for the whole question.
It was one because I confirmed that with my daughter today. All her friends were scared of me, but only she cried.
Nice. I love it. Count Chocula or Count Dracula?
Chocula.
What year did Marty go back in time to?
1986?
That's right.
1950 something. That's
Oh.
probably when the movie came out.
Yes.
Yes.
Pretty close. I think Jason, what is it? 50
85 and 55.
85 and 55, 30 years. Bonus, what song was playing at the Enchantment Under the Sea when George and Lorraine first kissed?
Never saw it, I don't think, or no clue.
Earth Angel. Earth Angel. What kind of car was Kit?
Thought it was a Trans Am.
Bingo.
It's either Trans Am or it is a Trans Am, isn't it?
Trans Am
Firebird.
is a Firebird.
Well, it's
It is.
Einhorn is Finkel.
It's the same car.
Where were we? Oh, what country is Hasselhoff huge in?
Germany.
That's correct. Dogs or cats?
Yeah.
Cats. I know you want to end the interview there, but if you saw my daughter's cats, you'd fall in love with them.
Okay. That is our first cat.
They are like a
Second.
married couple. Watching
second
these
cat.
cats and their heads turning and how they play, and they don't require anything of me. So
Oh, well, that's
all
good. As long as they don't
That's a
require
huge
anything.
advantage.
That is.
Yeah.
Dogs are just so much work. What does ALF
They are.
stand for?
alien life form.
That is correct.
Yes.
You are just
Ooh,
crushing it.
That was a total
You are
guess.
The final villain in Ghostbusters.
The Stay Puft Marshmallow Man.
That is correct.
Oh,
The first person to nail it. And of course, everyone's favorite, Trump or Biden.
Tulsi Gabbard.
Well played, sir.
And what was the first concert you ever went to, all the way back to as far as you can remember?
REO Speedwagon. I was a junior in high school. It was down at Ohio University.
That is great. Ooh, that is good. So back from the Speedwagon into now, how did you get involved in this crazy business of insurance?
This is actually pretty interesting. I was at school. I had accepted a job with a department store chain. Last week of school, I get a letter from Travelers Insurance. Knew nothing about insurance. In fact, whatever thoughts I had were all negative. But I went to the interview
I
because
think
I was
everybody says
dating a
that.
girl. Yeah, well, I was dating a girl, and so I thought, I owe it to her to see if I can get the job because it's in my hometown, Columbus, Ohio. And I go, and lo and behold, I get the job. And the first day of work, I met my wife. Been married now
Wow.
32 years. So
So
Wow.
if you had not tried to impress the girlfriend by going to get this job, you wouldn't have met your wife.
true. And I had to impress her, so I still was having to work through stuff like that.
You're stepping in some dangerous territory.
My wife, when she met me, she literally said, "When I saw you walk in the conference room, the HR conference room, we started on the same day." She said, "I looked at you and thought, what an egghead. Travelers really got a winner here." So I
Wow.
stumbled out of the gate badly. But the moral of the story is eggs are good for you.
Yes. That is fantastic. So walk us through Travelers. What was your experience there?
Um, it was great because it was first job out of college, and it's a terrific company. Got great learning. Obviously, I met my wife. I learned just a ton about underwriting. I was in personal and then moved over to commercial, how big companies operate. And from there, then I went to a much smaller company called State Auto Insurance, which is located here in Columbus, Ohio, and got to take that big company experience and bring it into the small company. So I felt like I got the best of both worlds, but totally positive experience at both places.
Fantastic. And then what did that lead to?
So almost 20 years ago, I came across the work of a man named Robert Cialdini, Dr. Cialdini, who was a social psychologist out of Arizona State University. And I was so enthralled with his material. When I came across it, he studies the psychology of persuasion. And when I started to hear him talk about it, the light bulb came on. I was like, this is the foundation of selling. And this is what I want to do with the rest of my career. And so I started weaving it into everything I did: sales training, sales coaching. I ran a corporate university. Everything I was doing corporately, weaved it in and set up my business on the side. And then 2.5 years ago, decided it was time to jump ship and do this full time.
So you were doing that for a company at first?
I was working with the field salespeople at State Auto Insurance.
Oh,
And
right.
then I
Okay.
started working with the independent insurance agents and doing multi-day workshops for them to help them with their sales skills. And from there, moved into the corporate university. And that was after that is when I decided it was time to jump. So not out of an airplane, but I
Right.
jumped. No
That's
parachute.
it's so interesting because agents will go in and often not have any experience with insurance, right? They come from another industry, open up a shop, and then it's a baptism by fire. They have to learn the business, the industry, the lingo. They have to learn how to become a manager, a hiring manager, a salesperson, all of these things. And then zooming down on that specific area, there's the selling and being good at selling. And then there's the part of being good at prospecting or marketing, right? Bringing in the people to sell. And it's a dynamic to be able to spin those two plates.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, most people are simply taught all about the policy and how to talk about the policy, but not really taught how to sell or, what is the psychology of selling. And when you understand how other people think and behave, and you start adjusting how you interact with them, it's incredible the difference that it can make. And that's what I teach people how to do based on the research from social psychology and behavioral economics.
So I love this subject. It's definitely one of my favorites. I too believe everything is selling. I want to know, what were some of the first ahas that you had, especially diving into, I thought it was Cialdini. I've been saying it wrong forever, but Cialdini's work and what were the things that really got the wheels turning and then implementing with agents?
Okay. Well, as I said, when I heard him speak, and it was a video from Stanford, he spoke there back around 2001, 2002. And I was intrigued by the psychology because I saw how it related to sales. I appreciated his stance on ethics. He talked about non-manipulative ways to do this. But what really was probably the aha, I'm a very logical person. I started my career in underwriting. Things are pretty black and white, yes or no, that kind of thing. And truthfully, I thought sales was a bunch of BS. I just thought, it doesn't matter how you talk. Agent just wants the lowest price, and customer just wants the lowest price. And then once I started getting into selling, and I started to realize good salesperson can make a big difference in terms of helping you get what you need. And then layer on top of that this psychology that when you look at what the research shows and what a difference it can make when you engage this psychology, that was the aha for me. Like, wow, 4 times more people said yes to the very same thing just because they changed a couple of words or reframed how they presented that. And I just thought that was so amazing. And I guess that logical part of me wanted to understand the human mind more. And so I started diving in deep in all of that.
Yeah, we are so. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, you go.
I was just going to say, we are very, very focused in our agencies on the training of the staff, on constant sales training. It's a daily, if not twice a day, where we work on little stuff because it's the reps, right? It's not, once they have a broad understanding of that psychology and understanding and really buying into the idea, because I know obviously if you're working with a lot of agencies, that first you have to sell them on the idea, right? They're like, whatever, we just quote them. And what we find is especially if you hire somebody from outside, they're usually terrible if they came from the insurance industry as a salesperson, right? Otherwise they'd be where they were and never have left. So you bring them in, you have to break a lot of bad habits because it's sort of this, I'm just going to quote you. Like, quote isn't even a word we use in the agency because we're going to have a conversation about your insurance and find out about the coverages you have without getting too far down the rabbit hole because, people turn off when they start talking about insurance. So you have to be careful. Yep. But I'd be interested in knowing, like when you walk into an agency and you start talking to that team, you start working with them, what's the first thing that you do as you're observing them?
Well, perhaps the most important thing is teaching them about the psychology of what we call the principle of liking, that it's easier for people to say yes to those they know and like. Now, everybody's like, oh, duh, I get that. But most people, when you observe them, they don't understand how to put it into practice, and they focus on the wrong thing. So we teach people some very simple things. For example, when we connect on what we have in common, it is very natural for people to like others that they see as similar to themselves. So always making a concerted effort to talk about or find out what you have in common and make that a starting point of your conversations. But the big problem that people run into is they try to get people to like them. Now, I know that the principle says if people like you, they're more likely to say yes. But you can come across like a used car salesperson when you're desperately trying to get that person to like you. And the key really is do everything you can to come to like that other person. So if you two guys really start to say, wow, Brian really likes me, that's where you start opening up to whatever I might share, because deep down, we all believe that friends do right by friends, right? And if you sense that I truly like you, you're more open to what I share. But because I do like you, what I put on the table is in your best interest. It's not just to make a sale. It's to give you the best product, best service possible. So we've got this virtuous cycle where I'm doing everything I can to like you. You're sensing that, and it becomes so much easier for us to do, to do business.
I love that.
Yeah, that is great. What are some of the things when you do go into an agency that you see that almost every agency does, that these are the first few things we need to implement to make a change?
Well, one of the things, right off the bat, when you walk in, you're going to probably be greeted by somebody. And that person's going to probably be fairly nice, but they should be very outgoing. Think about when you walk into Starbucks, right? Everybody, hey, how you doing? You feel really good about that. And you can get coffee lots of other places, and you can get it a lot cheaper. But you usually don't get that same feel when you walk into those places. So everything starts at that moment. I tell people they may not do business with you just because they like you, but they'll never do business with you if they don't like you, unless you offer something that is so out of the box that they just can't get it elsewhere. So everything starts there. And then there are little things that you can do to engage. For example, there's a principle of reciprocity. If I do something for you, Jason, you feel this sense of obligation to want to do something in return. If somebody walks into your agency, and I know that Craig, you're down in Tucson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if somebody walks into your agency, it's always hot.
Yep.
Having something for them that they can have, like water, is a nice gesture, but you never want them to go get it themselves, because that doesn't engage the principle. It's when somebody says, oh, it's warm out today, would you like some water? Absolutely. And that person hands it to them, right?
Right.
That's where reciprocity is engaged. And all of these little interactions, the really being nice as they come in, connecting on what they might have in common, handing them that water, all of this is starting to build this momentum that's going to make it easier when they sit down with the person who they're going to start talking about their insurance needs with. For example, you guys ever stay at the DoubleTree? You ever stay?
Yeah,
at
I
the
have.
DoubleTree?
Yes,
Okay.
I have.
You know, everybody knows the DoubleTree because of the chocolate chip cookie.
Yeah.
And it's a good cookie, but the Embassy Suites has pretty good cookies too. But the difference is when you check in at the DoubleTree, they hand you the cookie right at that moment, and it sets the stage for everything else. When you're walking in and out of the Embassy Suites, you can grab as many of those vanilla or chocolate cookies as you want, but it doesn't engage people the same way as that simple act of presenting that gift as soon as they check in. That's the kind of thing that you want to think about when somebody is going to come into your agency. How can we engage them in this way that makes them feel very different than what they feel when they go to another agency?
You have to differentiate in
that.
a very, very red ocean. And it's so powerful. We talk about this all the time with the staff or with the team about all of the little details. And it's why we hammer out that it's scripted. It's a loose script, but there's certain things that you have to say. And like, but some new person, I don't want to say that. And no, you have to say that. Like, part of this is non-negotiable because it creates that momentum, and it's you're at the plate, you're swinging, and you have to increase the chances of hitting the ball. And the sum of all of these little details are what create that optimal chance.
Yeah. So what I teach people about, I've used the term principle a couple of times. These principles of persuasion that are across the globe. As social psychologists have studied this, to one degree or another, humans respond to all of these. So when you understand these principles, as opposed to just a script, you are more flexible in terms of how you can interact with people. So I don't want people to say things exactly the way I say them. I want them to so deeply understand the psychology that they can use their own words. We're essentially saying the same thing, but it sounds completely authentic because it's using the way you talk, Craig, or the way you talk, Jason, as opposed to the way I might have said it exactly.
Love it.
Love it. Yeah. What are some things over the phone, and how different is it than in person?
Well, over the phone, obviously you can't read body language, even though people still have body language. I mean, they're squirming in their chair, or they're shaking their head yes or no, but you can't tell that. So over the phone, you have to pay a lot more attention to tone of voice, because tone of voice is going to indicate where somebody is in terms of their emotional state. Are they really into what you're talking about, or are they just dispassionate? Are they bored? Is there something else on their mind? You really have to get good at catching tone of voice. And then it becomes even more important to ask a lot of questions. Because if you can't see that person and you're not asking questions, you don't know if they're just looking off out the window or what. But when you engage people with questions, even if they don't answer them out loud, they're always answering them in their head. And so you want to keep somebody in, you have to utilize questions. And Jason, to one of the questions you asked earlier about, what are some things you see that people do wrong? A lot of times people spend way too much time telling people rather than asking. And if they ask and that person answers for themselves, now they own it, because they are the ones that put it out on the table. It wasn't pushed out on them as advice or opinion.
Can you give examples of both?
Sure.
And the different ways to frame?
An example would be, when I would work with agents and I would say, okay, what is a reason that somebody's going to want to do business with you? Almost all the time they'll say, because we're local. And I'm like, okay, that might be a good reason. But in the world that we're in, where we can do so much over Zoom and other platforms, is that really as big a deal? So what you need to do is simply ask the question, Jason, is it important to you that, if you needed to sit down with your agent face to face for a difficult conversation, that you'd be able to do that in 20 or 30 minutes if you had to? Almost every person will say yes. And at that point, that's where you can say, that's what most of our customers appreciate about us being local, that we can sit down with them if something comes up immediately, looking them in the eye and having that conversation. But the fact that you said it now, it becomes one more trigger for you to potentially say, that's who I want to do business with. And whatever it is that you think is unique about your agency, and certainly uniqueness is a factor in why somebody would want to do business with you. Because if they can't get the same products or service or combination from somebody else, then that makes you more valuable. But the best way to get them to see that is by asking questions. So I would say anything that you think is a unique factor about your agency, how can you, rather than advertise it, ask a question to get people to verbalize how they feel about it?
Love it.
Why is it that that producers will, maybe they would even know this, but then they'll revert back to telling it instead of asking those questions?
The same reason so many people are bad at golf, because they've had so many bad reps to begin with, and
Right.
and they know what they should do, but in the moment, thinking takes a lot of work, and so once you become preoccupied with all the other things, you just naturally fall back to what's comfortable. So this is a skill that you need to really retrain your brain and get into the habit of asking lots of questions. And so you talked about, that you continually talk to your staff in little bites about things. You would want to continually reinforce the value of asking questions and getting them to do the same thing. The beauty of it is you don't have to carry the conversation. You ask the question, you take a breath, you let that person talk, you display good listening skills, you ask another question, you let them talk. It's actually a lot easier when you learn how to ask questions as opposed to a monologue.
Love it. Love it. It's almost like you're helping them do the thinking for them instead of throwing it in their court, and they might not connect the dots.
Yeah. There's a pretty well-known sales trainer out in the Phoenix area, Tom Hopkins, who likes to say, when you say it, they doubt it. But when they say it, they believe it. And that's always true, right? When something comes from us, we own that. When it comes from you, it might be good, it might not be good. But boy, when it comes from me, I feel differently about it.
Right. We say a lot, help them make the decision, right? You help them along so that they make that decision. Because if they make the decision, they're here for a long time.
Right. Now, all of this taps into the principle that we call consistency. And consistency simply says that we feel this internal psychological pressure, but also this external social pressure to be consistent in what we say and what we do. So let me ask either of you this. Have either of you ever given your word to somebody that you would be somewhere or do something with them, but then you had to back out?
I can answer for Jason and say that this has happened.
Is that true, Jason?
No, I mean, everybody has, right?
So, yeah, everybody. Yeah.
So the real question is, and I'm going to guess that your reason was legit and your friend probably understood, but the real question is, how did you feel when you had to tell your friend, hey, I can't make it?
It's never good.
Right.
Yes.
Right. You're letting somebody down.
That's right. Again, even though they understand it and it's legitimate, you hate how that feels. And so we work really, really hard to do whatever we can to keep our word. Sometimes even with things we don't really want to do, but we know will look better to those people that we made the commitment to. But more important, we'll feel better about ourselves. And that's a big driver of human behavior. And I think it's one of the most important principles in selling because it's built on the questions. If I can ask you the right questions, you're owning that, right? And so when I come back to you and share with you that I've done everything and more than what you've asked, it's a lot easier for you to say, let's go ahead and do business.
Love it. What other ways besides the obvious sales conversation can you use those kind of principles in the agency?
Well, managing your team, right? When we talk about persuasion, I love the definition from Aristotle. Aristotle said persuasion was the art of getting someone to do something that they wouldn't ordinarily do if you didn't ask, right? If you walk into your agency, people are going to be busy doing things, and you may need them to stop and refocus onto something else. How you communicate with them might make all the difference between yes and no, or yeah, but dragging their feet versus yeah, enthusiastically. So how we interact with those people. So I'll give you a quick example, because this is so often the case where a leader will walk by somebody who is on their team and tell them what to do. Hey, Craig, I need the sales numbers, right? And you've got all kinds of outs. Didn't hear you. Been busy. It's going to get them later. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen. So if I learn to turn that into a question, Craig, could you get me the sales numbers? And I'll give you a date too. Could you get me the sales numbers? Let's say they're due Friday. Could you get me the sales numbers by Friday? You might say yes, but you might also say, oh, I can't, I'm really busy. There's no way I'm going to be able to get that. Now I don't have what I need. The savvy communicator allows themselves fallback positions. So I might say, hey, Craig, would you be able to get me the sales numbers by Tuesday? Knowing that if you say no, I might fall back and say, hey, I know everybody's busy. Any chance you can get them by the end of the day, Wednesday? And the psychology of that is when you make a request after somebody says no, right on the heels, the likelihood of them saying yes starts skyrocketing, because we hate saying no. Plus, you feel like, hey, Brian's given a little, I should give a little. So structuring that by asking a question and allowing for fallback positions. And then the final thing I'll say too is research shows that when you use the word because, lots more people do what you want. Because when the two of you were kids, if mom or dad ever told you to do something and you dared to say why, what did they say?
Because.
Yeah.
Because I said
Wow.
so, right?
It's indoctrinated.
Yeah. And you didn't
Hardwired.
You didn't turn to your mom or dad and go, well, that's not really a legitimate reason. You just did it. And so we are conditioned. So now imagine somebody walks by and says, hey, Craig, would you be able to get me the sales numbers by Tuesday because I need them for the board report? That's a totally different psychological interaction versus, hey, I need the sales numbers. You start learning this and you start weaving it into how you communicate with people. You never tell, you ask. You allow fallback positions. You give reasons. You will get what you need much more than the person who just operates out of habit and tells people what to do.
Yeah. Well, and they'll like you more, right? And as they like you more, then they're going to do more and so on and so forth.
Yep.
So you've written a couple books?
I have. My first book was called Influence People. And the word people is a subtitle for powerful everyday opportunities to persuade that are lasting and ethical. And it looks deeply at the psychology. And then I have business case studies, real world business examples that I saw during my career, a little bit of talk about social media. And then the second book is directed at agents. It's called Persuasive Selling for Relationship-Driven Insurance Agents.
Love it.
Love that.
Can these skills, you bring in social media, which is obviously a big thing still. And are these same techniques usable in the social media space?
Absolutely. It's interesting that you asked that question, because human psychology, according to all the literature I've read, the human brain has not changed in some 40,000 years. So we're all operating as on Windows 3.1 or whatever that first system was. And so it's funny when people ask that question. I can imagine people back in 1900 saying, you think this stuff works with the telephone? Right? You think this stuff's going to work with a television?
Right.
Human thinking and hasn't changed. All that's changed is the medium that we're using. And so, yes, when we're on social media, all of the psychology is at play, but you might need to apply it differently. I can give you like an example that you may have seen. You don't see it so much anymore, but people used to send around 97% of my friends won't respond to this. Only 3% will have the guts to, and then they'll talk about something that's really needs help, like cancer. But that is working against you, because most people tune out after they realize if 97% of the people aren't doing something, then I'm not going to do it either. So they're trying to guilt you or shame you into some action, and they're actually hurting themselves by doing that. So there's all kinds of mistakes that people make, unfortunately, as they try to advance what could be very good causes.
Well, and you see agents post a lot like, hey, I just saved somebody $450 on their insurance. It's like, they're not jumping at your bit there.
But even that, the psychology is, people are far more motivated to take action when they think they'll lose versus when they'll gain. Many more people will take action when you say you're overpaying versus I will save you. And so that slight reframe into, Craig, I was looking at your policy and I think you've been overpaying at least $500 a year. What? Overpaying, that grabs you differently than I can save you $500.
Right.
Because psychologically, if I don't save the 500, I don't really feel worse off. But when you tell me I've been overpaying, I feel like that came straight out of my pocket, and I am more willing to take action based on that. So these subtle reframes make a big, big difference in people's willingness to say yes.
You created the pain instead of the opportunity. That is like, love it.
Love it. What are some other little like that was a huge nugget, I think. And I think, that's a
big nugget.
Most people huge. What are some other insurance nugs that you would, little tidbits that you could help the dude nation out there?
Well, if you've got experience in the industry, people may not know how much experience you have. And Jason, I have no clue as to how old you are, but you look fairly young.
He's very old.
That doesn't mean that you haven't been in the industry for a significant amount of time. And so subtly during conversation, by maybe dropping out that experience that you have, so if I'm talking to you and I might say, Jason, I've been at this a long time. I've been in the industry now for 30 years. And what I've seen is, and I just begin to share, I'm not bragging about myself. I'm just very conversationally putting that out there. When I work with people who are on the company side in claims, and sometimes they'll say, well, yeah, but I've only been in the industry for 5 years. And I'll say, have you settled hundreds or thousands of claims? Well, yeah, in those 5 years, I've settled thousands of claims. Okay. The claimant that you're talking to, that you're needing to move their behavior so that you can speed up the claim process, you can say, Mrs. Smith, I have settled thousands of claims that are just like yours, and I'm confident that I can help you get through this quickly. Mrs. Smith now has a lot of confidence. She doesn't know how long you've been in the industry, but she knows if you've done this 1,000 times, you're probably good at it. So you find that way to put out in a very authentic, conversational way that you've got experience, and people are more willing to follow the lead of people that they think have expertise.
What if he just started yesterday? How does he frame that?
If he just started yesterday, then one of the things you have to do sometimes is admit weakness. And when you admit weakness, that gives you credibility. So you might be able to say, Mrs. Smith, I'm really excited to work with you today, and I'm going to be right up front. This is my first day in insurance, but I am so excited to get to help somebody like you. And you know what? When you talk about what your weakness is, and then you transition with a but or a however, people tend to forget what came before but, right? Honey, I love you, but, okay, here comes the hammer. You forget the I love you. So when you learn about that, you actually can use your weaknesses to your advantage by putting them out relatively early and transitioning over to what you see as your strengths, and people get more focused on that.
Can this help in conversations with your significant other?
Absolutely.
I don't know.
Absolutely.
They're tough.
So I love this conversation because sales is everything.
Yeah.
What are some, so this has obviously helped a ton of agents coming from you into their agencies and stuff like that. But what about you personally? What other areas of life has, diving deep into this psychology helped you? What other cases?
Well, I always talk about the reason I love what I do is because I'm going to help people on a professional level and a personal level. I always talk about professional success and personal happiness because this is a 24/7, 365 skill. I mean, think about this. From the moment that a baby comes into the world, that baby cries. Why? Well, mom or dad needs to figure out, is it hungry? Does it need burped, fed, changed, whatever? It has a need, and it's doing what it can in its limited capacity to get the need met. Then we learn how to communicate. We get older, more sophisticated, but every single day we're trying to get our needs met. And how we do that, we communicate with people. So you better learn how to ethically and effectively persuade if you want to get your needs met. And we'll do that until the day we die. So people are going to use this 8 to 10 hours a day in the office, but then they're going to go home and they're going to interact with their kids, they're going to interact with their spouse and their neighbors. And understanding all of this in terms of interacting with them, it's the same thing. So raising our daughter who is 25, interacting with my wife who've been married 33 years, this comes into play every single day. And I'll give you a couple of examples. I have on my iPod, or my phone, playlists for my wife and daughter. They are songs that make me think wonderful things about them. I listen to those, like if I'm going to get ready to go out with my wife or if I'm going to spend time with my daughter, because I want to mentally get myself in a place where I am super excited to be with them. Oh. That's something anybody could do, right? But I know it changes how I feel about them, and then it changes how I interact with them, and it creates a better experience for all of us by doing that one simple thing to change my mentality. Another thing that I do is I look for opportunities to give whenever I can. And I've come up with some pretty creative gifts over the years when like for my wife's birthday. When she turned 52, my big gift to her was, let me ask this question. When you hear the number 52, what comes to mind?
I'm drawing a blank.
Most people say a deck of cards, but there's 52 weeks in a year, right?
Yes.
So
2 things.
So her gift on her 52nd birthday was a gift a week for a year.
Whoa, that's a big commitment.
They weren't really big or expensive, but every single week she knew she was getting something which she was excited about. My daughter would go out and help me buy gifts, so she got involved. Everybody won.
That's
cool.
And
it felt great. So, but I understood too. I didn't give any of those to engage reciprocity, like, oh, you owe me down. But I know that when you do those things for the people that you love, they naturally then want to do things that are beneficial for you. And again, you have a virtuous cycle where everything's on the up and up.
52 gifts.
Yeah. So let's go back to that. First off, I wish I could do that, but I think I would be like 3 weeks in and I'd stop or something. You did that for 52 weeks?
Well, sometimes I'd buy several. And so I always had 5 to 8 in this bin. And then so it wasn't like every week I had to do it. But if I was with my daughter and we saw 3 things, then I would get those and I'd wrap those. And I always had things in a box that I could bring up and then she'd grab them and shake them and choose whichever one that she wanted. Oh, the other thing I would say in terms of kids that we did for our daughter that was unique, everybody has a birthday, everybody gets gifts on Christmas and stuff. We created what we called a special day, which was a day that we would choose at random. We'd wake our daughter up from bed and say special day, and we'd have gifts and the whole day focused on her. And even though she's 25, she's still like, you better not stop doing special day. So those are things that anybody could do, and they take a little bit of effort. But my gosh, what you get in return is so much more.
Is one of your wife's love languages the receiving gifts?
She sort of liked it that year. I think it's the you're growing up and it's the thought that counts. You're like, yeah, right, give me the gift. But you get older and you start to realize how nice it was that you were top of mind for that person for that day as they were thinking about something, and then you start finding there's lots of other ways to remain top of mind, and it could be the little texts in the middle of the day. It could be like, hey, I ran the dishwasher for you, but just making sure you point that out. Like I didn't want you to come home and have to do this, and so I made sure I got it done today. And those little acts of kindness, man, they build up.
I love that. I'm going to do special day. I have 4 kids. It's going to be a lot of work.
4 special days.
Gonna do, that's a lot of special days. But
are the other 3
awesome.
going to get mad if one has a special day, or should they all have special day on the same day?
They should all have probably separate special days because that would make it special, right? And then just randomly, then they
Yeah.
can be excited for the other person, hopefully. Well, they,
If you do it for all four at once, you could call it not so special day.
yeah, special. It's special, not so
Yeah.
special day.
I still have Kenzo for 2 more years, so I might do special day with him. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that
I
is
like
cool.
that. Not might. Why might? I'll do it.
That's right.
Okay.
What's the
Make
might?
that public commitment so you don't,
Yeah.
so you feel the internal and external psychological pressure.
Yeah. I did that
Writing
when we
it
did
down.
Ignite. We had an event here at my office. Jason came out and I declared that I would ride, and I hadn't ridden my bike in a while, and I declared in front of everybody that I was going to ride my bike. And so I had the pressure that I had to, and they called me out, and I did, luckily.
That was
A
fun.
lot of this stuff works also back on you to get done the things you want to do. And
Sure.
so by making that public commitment, and we talk about, when it's public and you have to actively do something, and it's a voluntary and requires a little bit of effort, all of a sudden you will be amazed at how much more you'll follow through, because you're like, dang it, I don't want them to look at me and think I say one thing and do another. So anytime you've got that goal, maybe you're going to start riding a bike or run a marathon or lose 10 pounds, tell people. And that will give you more of a kickstart to actually follow through.
Love it.
Well, the listeners can choose the dates of the special days. There's 5 special days to pick, and they can go in the Facebook group and just post what days are for what. How about that?
Okay.
Yeah.
I like it.
Yeah.
What did you ever study NLP?
I've read some books on it, but no, I didn't study it
Okay.
directly. I read a ton. I mean, I've just tons of books on psychology, and I'm a nerd when it comes to that kind of stuff too. I'm reading a book on economics now just because it's interesting and what's going on in the country and trying to understand about policy and programs and stuff.
Have you read Nonviolent Communication?
I have not.
It's interesting because it has a lot of the concepts that you're talking about, where you don't, when you're talking to somebody, it's not you, it's the I approach, I feel this, and then at the end you ask for what you want, and it's like the magic formula. It's really interesting.
I love that stuff.
That's a good one. Yeah.
Yeah, this is all amazing stuff. So if somebody wants to, well, gosh darn it, I just stepped over myself. What is the number one piece of advice you'd give any insurance agent, either coming into the industry or that really wants to kickstart the agency? What would be the number one piece of advice you would give them?
I think the number one piece of advice would be do all you can to come to like the people that you work with, the customers of your agency, and the underwriters who you're going to interact with, and not on a surface level. I mean, deeply get to know and like those people so that they really begin to understand whatever it is that you're asking or putting forth is coming from a good place. Even if they don't agree with you, even if they have to say no, it is much easier to navigate those conversations when you know you've got a deep connection with somebody. And that ability to connect with people rests more on each of us individually than it does those people out there. Because I have seen time and time again when I thought initially somebody really didn't like me and I thought, I'm going to put this into practice. I've not only made friends, I've gained advocates.
Love it. Well,
Love
yeah,
it.
those ones
That is
the folks you turn around are the ones that end up being the strongest bonds. Like our client, that's what we talk about it on the phone with the leads. If they get somebody and they're all angry and yelling, and you can turn that around, they're a client for life. They
Absolutely.
So win them, because that's what they do to everybody else.
Yeah, that's right. And when somebody says, hey, I don't need a pat on the back to know I'm doing a good job, that's the person you better pat on the back, because they say it because they don't get it, and it's a self-defense mechanism.
Ooh, interesting. All these nuggets.
Love it. So if somebody needs more Brian in their life, where are they going?
They are going to LinkedIn. Any person who's listening to the show, reach out to connect with me. And I guarantee you this, I will respond to you. If you don't put a note in, like I heard you on the Insurance Dudes podcast, guarantee you will get a message back from me. How did you find me? I like to know why people are reaching out, but it's a great conversation starter. So when they come back and then they realize, hey, this is a real live person. He's not just accepting all these connections. He's actually communicating with me. So, and even if you do say that you heard me on the show, I'm going to say thanks. And there's going to be a message going back and forth, and maybe we'll get to know each other. So that'd be the first place. And the other place would be my website, which is influencepeople.biz. If folks go out there, I've been blogging weekly for almost 14 years now. So there's tons of information, videos, previews to my LinkedIn learning courses. I've been on well over 100 podcasts, so there's a lot they could go back and listen to. So that's another way to certainly connect with me.
Awesome. And
Awesome.
You were on a TED Talk?
So good.
I'm going to get back on it. I got canceled 5 days out because of COVID.
The COVIDs.
So I'm waiting for the organization to repost when they're going to do that, and then I'm going to jump back on.
That's
that.
great.
That was disappointing because I was going to be their opening speaker, so I was psyched. Here in Columbus, which meant friends and family, and 5 days out,
That'd be cool.
Everything locked down here in Columbus.
Well, please make
there.
sure to share that with us when you when you do go on, and we'll share it out to the Dudette Nation too.
Will do. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much. And hey, thank you for putting together the Hello, Craig and Jason sign. That's very nice of you.
Love it.
And
You're welcome.
It's been great to have you on the show.
It's your special day.
It is. Thank you.
It is
I'll tell
our-
my wife
thank
that
you.
tonight. It's my special day. Don't, be nice.
Yeah, don't tell her it's her special day. I know what you mean by that, Craig, and trust me, that's more of your special day.
I don't know what you're talking about. This is uncomfortable. All right. Then let's end it.
All right.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, Brian.
You're welcome.